Welcome to the Tableau desktop training session. So during the first session, I'm going to introduce you to the tool Tableau, Tableau desktop, what is Tableau desktop, and then we'll briefly go through the architecture of the Tableau, and also we would go through connecting to the data sources and the various features that Tableau UI provides, and also the filter functionality and connecting to data sources, various ways of connecting to data sources. So even before we get into Tableau, what exactly is Tableau? So Tableau is nothing but a visualization tool, right? So when we say visualization tool, what are we talking about? So basically, in any company, any industry that you're working in, you will always have to deal with data. So there is going to be a lot of data. So data could be financial data, the data could be sales information, the data could be the information, or you would have your vendor information, lots of different information and data would be available in any industry that you're working in. So what do we do with all this data? So we can always analyze this data, go through the data, understand how our company has been performing by looking at the data, either the historic or the current year data, and then take. So Tableau fits into this category, which helps people who have data to make sense out of it. So we can look at it at a larger picture of BI, which is business intelligence system that would be put in place in most of the companies over on the top of data warehouse. So you would have your data source, and then you would have your data warehouse, which is nothing but historical and analytical database, basically which helps in companies to analyze their data, their historic data, view trends of sales and profits, and take business decisions. So once you have this, once you have the data source, the data warehouse built in, how would you make sense of the data? I mean, that would all be available inside tables, right? So connect to those and then see how the trend is. So that's again a place where Tableau comes into picture. So Tableau is one of those new generation visualization tools which helps in rapid dashboarding and very nice charts that are inbuilt. And also it helps analysts also to get into dashboarding. It need not be a user need not be highly technically skilled to be building dashboards using Tableau. So that explains actually why Tableau is becoming very popular nowadays. So we have got just an introduction about Tableau. So what's Tableau? Tableau is a visualization tool which helps users or anybody who wants to make sense out of data and has access to the data quickly connect to the data source and then come up with some charts and understand what's lying that is available to us. Okay, so that's the brief introduction about Tableau. So what are we dealing with over here right now? So what are we dealing with Tableau desktop? So what is Tableau desktop? Why do we call it Tableau desktop? And what are the other products which Tableau makes? So Tableau basically makes two major products. So one is called the Tableau desktop and the other one is called the Tableau server. Tableau's architecture. So when we say Tableau, so Tableau's architecture basically it is an entire tier client server architecture, that serves mobile clients, web clients, and desktop installed software. So what does it mean? So this means that Tableau as a whole includes the Tableau server and the Tableau desktop. So the Tableau desktop is the authoring tool, which helps the users connect to data sources and build the dashboards and reports. Tableau server is basically the place where you would actually host your reports on and then make them available for your consumers of the report. Okay, so we would understand more about Tableau desktop as we're going deeper into the sessions on this in this training. Whereas Tableau Server, I'd just like to talk a little more about Tableau Server right now. Which actually is the platform that you would generally be sharing your dashboards to the clients. Okay, so let's look at the architecture, which is right now shown on the slide. So so over here, what we're seeing over here is the clients. So this is, and they have listed desktop and browser as the client. So let's look at one by one. So let's look at the browser. So what's a browser? So browser is nothing but any internet browser that a user is going to use to connect to the report and view it. Okay, and then mobile. So Tableau also makes reports available on mobile devices or handheld devices. So it could be a mobile, or it could be a mobile phone, or it could be a tab, and also desktop. This is exactly what we're talking about over here, which is Tableau Desktop. So Tableau Desktop is a client which actually connects to the data source, and also it can connect to the server and then publish reports and do other things along with building the dashboards. So these clients are connected to the server. So now let's look at the server components. So there is, when we're talking about typical server, so it is going to be hosted on one of those one of the systems, which will be accessible to all the different people who need access. So you would have something called a gateway or a load balancer, this is what would be actually taking in the requests and making sure that the requests are sent to the correct components. So we have a gateway, and then we have something called data server, SQL server, and application server. So even before I get into details of each of these components, let me just tell you that the way Tableau works is you would have your reports developed in desktop, and then you publish it onto the server, and then the user server and then views the report. So during this process, these are the components which come into play. So whenever I am giving a URL of the dashboard to any of the users, the user is going to access it, and then he would have to authenticate himself that, okay, I am the correct user. So that is done by, all those things are done by the application server, and then to the data. So it would have to connect to the data using either data connections connecting to the underlying data sources. So that is done by the data server over here, and then the Tableau report itself, which gets rendered on the browser, is handled by the SQL server. And also there is something called the data connectors. So what does data connector mean? A data connector is nothing but a component on the Tableau server which helps in connecting sources. So these data connectors could be MDX connectors, SQL connectors, or fast data engine connectors. So let me just talk about SQL connector. So this is depending upon what kind of data source you are going to connect to. So if you're connecting to a RDBMS, which is like Oracle or SQL, your SQL connector will come into picture. And if you're connecting to a cube, which could be a Microsoft SSA, MDX connector would come into picture here to communicate with the cubes. And then Tableau has got its own data engine, which also there is something called extracts, which we're going to talk about a little later more. So extracts is nothing. Extracts is what fast data engine deals with. So if I have a data source which is a Tableau extract, then the fast data engine component comes into picture when connecting to the data source. And something called repository over here. So what is this repository? So this repository is nothing but all the reports that you create, or all the users that you create on the server, gets stored in Tableau's repository. So this repository is nothing but a PostgreSQL database which is hosted which gets installed along with the Tableau server, and then all this information about your server, the users that you create, and the reports that you publish, everything gets stored into the repository. So this is the basic architecture. So as I mentioned again, I'll just run through this once again. So basically you have this client which could be a mobile which is connecting to the server and trying to access the report, or it could be a browser on your laptop or your desktop, and it could be a Tableau desktop itself. So these are the clients, and then the components of the server are gateway or the load balancer, and you have the data server which takes care of the data connections, and you have the application server which takes care of your permissions and things like that. And then you have your SQL server which is very helpful in rendering the reports. And then you have these data connectors. So depending upon what sort of data you're going to connect to, each of these data connectors will come into play. So if it's cube, it's going to be MDX. If it's relational database, it's going to be SQL connector. And if you're working in Tableau Extract, then it's going to be the fast data engine of Tableau. And also it has a repository. That's another component of the server, which is nothing but the database server, which stores all the users, all the reports that you've created, and all the different and basically the information about these reports and the users and various activities that go on the server. These get stored in the repository. This is basically the architecture of Tableau. So let's just move on and look at Tableau Desktop. So what is Tableau Desktop? So initially, even Tableau Desktop is nothing but a data visualization application that lets us analyze virtually any type of structured data and produce highly interactive, beautiful graphs, dashboards, and reports just in minutes. So as I was saying, Tableau Desktop allows us to connect to various different types of data sources, right from flat file to even cloud data sources like Google Analytics and other things, and also to Hadoop, which is the big data sources. So you can connect to these. They provide. So you can just use the connector provided by Tableau, and then just connect to this data sources that you want to connect to, and then you can start building your dashboards. And as I mentioned again earlier, that you need not be the user of this Tableau Desktop need not be very highly technically skilled. So even if we are business users, so I am a business user, so I know where my data is, and I know what am I expecting to see out of my data. So even if I just know how to enter the user credentials and connect to the data source and start pulling the data into Tableau, that is good enough for me to actually start off with Tableau and create dashboards. So of course, if one is not highly skilled in terms of technically, there might be reports that you would build would be limited. But if you are technically highly skilled, you can create really well-performing dashboards. Make sure you write the right SQL, and then make sure you exactly fetch only the information that you want. And there are various techniques that you would do to create these high-performing and beautiful dashboards. But on a whole, they made Tableau as easy as it can be for us to actually start using it and then start building. So again, when we say dashboards, it is not just going to be one single chart that you build, either a bar chart or a pie chart. It is going to be a very interactive dashboard. And so what do we mean by interactive dashboard? So what we mean is, it allows us to query the query, and then basically it displays the data, and then it helps us analyze the data by filtering, by sorting, and then by grouping, and it down, will up, and create some calculated fields, and organize these dashboards in a way which actually helps the decision-making user to look at it in a way that will help him in taking the decisions. Okay, and also the data can be presented in a faster and more efficient manner. Okay, so this is what is the Tableau Desktop. Again, on a high level, Tableau Desktop is a data visualization application which allows you to connect to a lot of different types of data sources within minutes. Okay, so okay, when we say create dashboards within minute, it doesn't mean that dashboards are going to be completed within minutes. So basically, it helps you connect to data sources and start building your dashboards. So we will, as we go into the detail sessions, you will see how to actually create these views, and then how to build a dashboard, and then how to make it look nice by adding a lot of formatting and then layouts, etc. So till now, we've just been talking about what Tableau Desktop is. We've not seen it actually, so we don't know what are all the components in it and how it's going to look and things like that. So till now in the session basically. So okay, so what does Tableau Desktop mean, and what are the components? So what does it look? So two things that are very important are worksheets and workbooks. So you can now use Microsoft Excel workbook. So basically, you have a spreadsheet, and then you have tabs in it. So you could think Tableau workbook as the same, and in the same way, So you have a Tableau workbook, and then you have multiple sheets which are shown as tabs. So each worksheet is nothing but it is the place, it is where the real work happens. So you connect to your data, and then you drag your columns and rows and drop the fields onto the shelves, and then this worksheet do your work. Collection of these worksheets, and then when you save that file, it is called the workbook. So there's another term that I've been using called dashboard. So dashboard is nothing but a collection of worksheets put into a single sheet, nicely layout, with a nice layout, and beautifully kept next to each other, and then meaningfully placed. It's called dashboard. So you might have 2 or 3 worksheets within a dashboard, and then you might have worksheets within a workbook. So workbook is the final output, the file that you save, and then that is what you publish, and that is what you share it with your users. So just with this understanding of worksheets and workbooks and dashboard, let's proceed and then see how Tableau looks. Okay, so this is again, I'm still on the slides. I'm just showing you a screenshot of how Tableau looks. Data sources basically. So let's go to the Tableau desktop itself. So here we are. So this is when you bring up the Tableau, open the Tableau. So this is what you would get, and then you see here. So these are basically in a file and on a server. So they have classified these different data sources as in a file and on a server. So what does it mean? So when we say in a file, it means it could be an Access MDB file, or it could be a text file, a CSV, or a TXT, or you might be importing from another workbook, or you might be connecting to Tableau data extract. So we're going to talk about Tableau data extracts a little later. And also the other section says on a server. So when you say on a server, these are the data sources that you generally would be interested in. So basically, you might have a data source like Oracle or Redshift or SQL Server, that you have your data and you want to connect and build your dashboard. So you would use one of these Tableau native connectors that are available here to go ahead, connect, and then start building your dashboards. So let's start with an Excel file. So again, let me just tell you that when you install Tableau Desktop, it comes along with a few sample data sources. So you could use that. I'm going to use that to start with, and then you can also use that to begin your exercises. So let me say Excel, and then this opens this My Tableau repository and data sources. That's where the data sources will be available, the sample data sources. So I'm going to use the Superstore subset. So you open. Here we are. So it's showing us this over here, where it's showing different sheets that are available in the Excel worksheet workbook, and then it shows a canvas over here where you can drag the sheets, and then you would see the data over here, underlying data over here. So let's do this. You can also consider this similar to a database. So you have an Oracle database, and in that database you have like three different tables, right? One is called the orders, the other one is called the returns. So let us actually now work on something called orders. So this is a table. I'm going to double click on this. So there are multiple ways you can do things in Tableau. So you can double click or you can drag it. Okay, so now I've double clicked and it has appeared over here, and then it's showing me the data that's within the worksheet, and it's showing me over here in the table below. So this is basically the best way of connecting to the database. So you just point it to the data source, you select what table you want, just double click on it, and then it connects. So now let's say, there's another couple of things that you would see, something called live and extract. So I'm going to talk about it a little later. So let me just go ahead and say go to worksheet. So now you see this. There is this orders that has got created here. So this is the data connection window. So this is how you connect to data source in Tableau. So we saw how to connect to Tableau, the desktop data source from the desktop. So basically, what we saw over there, the two options, one which said live and one which said extract. So what does it mean? Basically, you can connect two ways. So one is live connection. So when you say live connection, so what we are actually doing is connecting to the underlying data source. So any change in the underlying data, you're going to see it reflecting in your dashboards. Okay, so there is again different reasons or different circumstances that you would go for a live connection or the other. The other one is extract. So extract or in memory, what Tableau does is, Tableau basically connects to the database and it extracts all the data and then stores it locally onto the server or on your desktop. And then when it's accessing the data, it brings it in memory frequently. The access is faster and the dashboards perform very well. Okay, so there are, again, as I said, different scenarios why one would choose live and why one would choose extract or in memory. So basically, so if I have an underlying data source which is very fast data source, I have a cube which I've built, and I've aggregated all my data, and then it's very fast. So I don't really need an extract over here. So I would actually go and connect live to it, and actually use of this fast analytically optimized database that I have, and then I'm going to build my views, right? And there might be some other scenarios wherein my underlying data source is pretty slow, right? And also there might be no reason why I would want it to be live, right? I might be connecting to a data warehouse where the load happens once in a week. So I don't really need a live connection to the underlying data source. So what I would do is I would actually run a nightly job or something like that, get my data extracted and then kept on the server itself directly. My dashboards would work on the extract, which making the dashboards very fast. Okay, so these are the two different ways of connecting to the dashboards, to the data sources using Tableau. And as I mentioned again, so basically there are different scenarios why one would go for one of these. So what we did right now, we connected live to the Excel data source that we have.